Hey, what is up? Welcome to this episode of the Entrepreneur to Entrepreneur podcast. As always, I'm your host, Brian Lofermento, and I am so excited about today's guest and incredible fellow entrepreneur and expert because I'll tell you what, as I was preparing to interview him here today, what I really loved about what he wrote in our pre-interview questionnaire is he said, I love talking to business leaders with vision who are ready to have us build digital workforce assistants that do real work alongside their human teams. Most business leaders don't know how achievable this really is. And I feel like that's such a great teaser to today's conversation in today's episode because today's guest and entrepreneur really believes not only in the future of AI, but in the today, the present, the current of AI. So let me introduce you to today's guest. His name is Mark Brennan. Mark previously has worked at Salesforce all the way back starting in 2007, which is where he was introduced to a powerful platform, a rapid development environment, and super smart people. He then embarked on a journey to deliver greatness to struggling IT departments globally. He's had some CIO stints. He started a few of his own businesses. We're definitely going to talk about Mark the entrepreneur as well as the subject matter expert, but his current company, Kynoch Labs, is a trusted Salesforce partner specializing in building autonomous agents and related AI solutions for businesses. Their services include assessment, gap analysis, business process analysis, an overview of possibilities. I love the expansive thinking there. Design and build of agent solutions and ongoing monitoring and refinement. There are so many cool things that Mark and his company are up to. And I think that it's really going to paint a picture of how far along we are in the AI race, whether we realize it or not. There's so much that we could be tapping into. So I'm excited about this one. I'm not going to say anything else. Let's dive straight into my interview with Mark Brennan. All right, Mark, I am so very excited that you're here with us today. First things first, welcome to the show.
Great to be here, Brian. Great kickoff, and excited to talk to you.
Heck yes. The one thing I didn't mention in the intro is that your accent, I already know it's going to steal the show here today. So let's dive straight into your background. It's a perfect segue, Mark. Who is Mark? How did you get into doing all these cool things?
Awesome. Well, Brian, you were asking like, where's my accent from and all that stuff. I don't think about that very often, but Irish family, grew up in a few different countries and came to America in 1993. The draw of Silicon Valley, just couldn't resist. In fact, I left a gorgeous apartment in Switzerland on the shores of Lake Neuchâtel to come here. My friends thought I was nuts, but I wasn't, because I was attracted to where the cool stuff gets invented. I wanted to breathe the same air as Steve Jobs and the likes of, and here we are. A lot of adventure. Just to sum it up, Brian, I'm a tech industry veteran now. I really admire the inventors and the visionaries. I have worked for some of the great companies in Silicon Valley, and I found that I was implementing big ERP systems and working alongside big consulting firms, and that there was a point in the 90s there where I got a little bit disillusioned with big promises, bloated budgets, and then disappointment when we didn't really achieve the vision of these big projects. And that's why I started to fall in love with mid-market companies, and also I discovered Salesforce, and that's where everything changed for me. Both the speed of delivering value to mid-market companies that are able to make decisions quickly, and you're able to talk to leaders who they have vision themselves, and you bring your own vision to the conversation, and we create a vision together, and then we go do it, which I was not finding in giant companies. It's kind of difficult to access those visionary leaders at the very top. And so here we are. It's been a fantastic journey, and Kynoch Labs is now my third entrepreneurial venture. And we can talk a little bit about the other two, but that's kind of my journey to here.
Yeah, I love that overview, Mark, especially because I think it really, right off the bat, showcases your unique vantage point of obviously third entrepreneurial venture. You've already talked about your love for mid-market businesses, and I want to go into there. And the contrast between the big businesses, the S&P 500 that we all see and hear about in the media headlines, I would argue that each brings value to the marketplace and to society as a whole, because entrepreneurs, Mark, we can move fast with minimal costs. We can break things. We can figure things out. We can be the early adopters of technology, of innovations, of approaches, of strategies. Mid-market businesses, it sounds like they're really those ones that flesh those out and apply that growth fuel. Then, of course, the big businesses turn it into a finished product that benefits all of society. That's my perspective on it. But Mark, you have such an interesting vantage point. I'd love to hear you compare and contrast those three different value points and what matters for each of those different business sizes.
Absolutely. Well, firstly, we're not here to criticize the titans of industry. If I were able to sit next to, Larry Page or Larry Ellison or Mark Benioff or any one of the giants, and to help them make a vision come true, that would be extremely exciting. But that's not who you get access to normally when you work for a Fortune 100 or Fortune 500 company, especially if they're not in tech. If they're more of a financial services or manufacturing, or they're kind of outside of Silicon Valley, the risk is, and this is what happened to me, is I am not sitting next to that visionary genius. I'm sitting with a group of people who are in middle management, and they are risk averse. They don't like my appetite for new stuff. And so I find myself, it's not my happy place. And by contrast, when I can connect with a leader, it doesn't have to be the CEO, but it has to be somebody who's got real kind of decision power and is able to make a vision come true. In a mid-market company, I actually have access to these folks, and we can create a vision together, and then we can make that dream come true. That's my happy place.
Yeah, I love that. Well, I know that one of your other happy places is in the incredibly evolving world of AI. And Mark, I want to put AI right in the center of our conversation. You heard me tease it at the very top of today's episode. All business sizes. That's the cool thing about the AI race right now, is that we're all trying to figure it out in different capacities. Where's that fit in? Especially talking to you as a fellow entrepreneur and then also applying it to the mid-market businesses that we're talking about. Where are we today? How far along are we that you don't think most people realize it?
Excellent. Well, Brian, maybe we need to go back a bit just to see where the "you are here" arrow on the map. Salesforce came into the AI world about 10 years ago with Einstein 1, and it was pretty good, and it was more visionary than really highly effective. It didn't really shake the world, but it was a predictive tool and also an insights tool. It was able to look at all your data and able to see things that maybe humans don't have the bandwidth or the ability to focus, to see those insights. And then it was able to some extent, kind of connect with some automation. Salesforce never got into training a large language model, an LLM. And I think that was genius of them to say, that's not where the money is. And you and I read the news, and all we hear about with AI is really which LLM outperformed everybody else this week and how much money got poured into their compute infrastructure. And we wonder, how does this affect us? How does it affect you and me? And the answer is not very much. I mean, we can switch from one LLM to another without much friction. It doesn't really matter. If you want to sit in front of a different prompt and ask the same question and compare the two, you could do that all day long. It's not very sticky. So I think what Salesforce is telling us is that that's not where the money is. The money is, how are you going to use AI in your business this year? And that's where I think the most exciting stuff is happening. Think about it. The bit about sitting in front of a prompt and asking it to write a document for you or solve a fairly simple problem for you is played out. We've been doing that for 2 years now, and I think anyone who hasn't done that yet is probably living under a rock, right? So I think everybody knows how to do that, and it's not like it's not going to get better. It is going to continue to improve. You're going to be able to ask OpenAI agents to do a series of tasks for you, not just one. But what's really exciting at this moment is last October, Salesforce announced Agentforce, which is essentially agentic AI, an agent that works 24/7 for you, alongside you and your human team, and actually works independently and autonomously. But you're able to monitor it, and you're able to keep it safe, and you're able to keep it from, you're able to put in guardrails that keep it from hallucinating or saying toxic things to customers. And you're also able to tell it when to hand over to your humans. When it's kind of off its skis on, it's the question is too hard, or the topic has kind of moved, it's about to move off script. No problem. Just call, hand it over to a human, and it's done most of the work for you. So this is really where the revolution is happening this year. And I think by this time next year, we'll see a large number of kind of leading edge businesses that see the value here and have built a few agents, and I've got them working alongside their humans. And we can talk a lot about what this does to the job market. What does it do to the economy? What does it do to, most of all, to the customer experience? That's what I think is the most important part of this revolution that we're in.
Yeah, Mark, hearing you talk about that, there's two things that I really enjoy. One is it's really cool to hear actual use cases of AI instead of just prompting. But then the second thing that I want to point out for listeners is you and I, we're not talking about years away from this. You're saying this time next year, and I think that just speaks volumes to the rate of acceleration in this marketplace. So with that in mind, Mark, when you talk about agents, we've all kind of heard that term in a very loose way. What are some of those use cases of what these AI agents can actually do inside of businesses?
Absolutely. So let's compare it to over here. You've got a person sitting in front of a screen, and they've opened an AI. They've opened OpenAI or Gemini or any one of the sort of top 7 or 8, and they're asking it to do something. They're asking it to research something, or to write a document, or to write a poem, or a short story, or whatever it is that you're asking. It can do that for you reasonably well. You might need to ask the question a few times until you've prompted it correctly and you've got yourself the right output. An agent, by contrast, is using that LLM, that large language model, in the background, but what it's doing is it's tasked mechanically to do certain things, to reason with either an employee or a customer, and to understand what the intent is, what is it being asked to do, and then to call on a number of actions that sit inside of its kind of toolkit, and call the right one, and at the same time call the large language model in the background to assemble responses back to you. So that may sound really nebulous. So let's go straight into a couple of examples. The most obvious example is customer service. You go to the chatbot on the website for your credit card company, or your health insurance company, or your pick any number of scenarios, and you're asking for help. Why are you doing that? Well, one, because we're kind of tired of calling call centers in faraway countries and explaining ourselves 6 times after waiting on the phone, and then finding that they weren't able to solve the problem. 2, because normal chatbots actually don't work. All they do is just point you to the frequently asked questions, and then you have to read reams of documentation and find that you have to solve the problem by yourself. So now the world that we're in is the chatbot is actually driven by an agent, not a human, and the agent is able to understand what you're asking and go find the information that will resolve your problem if it holds it. And it's using the LLM in the background to basically blend private internal information. In Salesforce, let's talk about this for a second. Salesforce is probably the only platform in the enterprise business world that is able to offer this Agentforce end-to-end. Why is that? Because it's a unified platform that's got your customer relationship management data. It's got your service data, including knowledge articles about cases, problems, how we resolve them, what the questions are, and what the answers to those questions are. Nobody else has that integrated in one pane of glass. And now it's got this Atlas reasoning engine, which is able to understand your intent. You've gone to the chatbot, or you're texting, or you're on the phone. It's able to manage all of these channels, and it's able to go fetch internally and then blend with a public AI formulating the answer to you. Now, the first thing you might wonder is, what about your private data? Are you training a public AI with your customers' data? Well, no, you're not. So Salesforce is taking great care to make your data safe and to mask it, and they've done a whole lot of work on prompt defense and data masking and zero retention, so that your data is safe. So what's happening here is essentially we're able to carry the luggage for the human team and do the more base level tasks and free them up to do more valuable work. Now, for example, you may be asking your credit card company about a transaction that took place in Pakistan, and you were not in Pakistan this week, so there's a problem. And it was able to look it up for you, and it's able to do so, to find it for you and tell you about it. But the next thing might be that it might actually be fraud, and we might need to hand it off to a human team. And the agent is trained. You've told it to do this, is to hand it off to a human and to basically prompt somebody in the fraud team, for example, to pick up the conversation seamlessly. You don't need to explain yourself again. You don't need to reintroduce yourself. They'll just take over the conversation and read the summary of what the agent has found so far. So let's think about that and unpack it for a second. That's kind of revolutionary, isn't it? So you've just got half your problem solved by a non-human, by an autonomous agent. And now the human is jumping in, and they already know everything they need to know about where we are so far and what to do next.
Yeah, Mark, I love that tangible example, because I feel like this is part of the mainstream conversation of people saying, well, yeah, us as consumers, we're going to get solved better. We're going to get solved quicker. There's so many big advantages there. From a business perspective, I'm thinking, well, we get to use our human capital in far more intelligent ways. We get to take them away from some of those things that just clog up their to-do lists. With that said, I also know that the macro argument is, what's going to happen to jobs? Are they going to shift? Are they going to change? The answer, of course, is for sure it is. What's your take on what the future looks like in the jobs market?
Sure. Well, Brian, let's preface this by saying I am a techno-optimist, but that has worked really well for me so far. So I think what's happening is, you've got to look at job titles and, income streams that exist today that didn't exist 10 years ago or 15 years ago. Podcasters, influencers, YouTubers, GoPro influencers. Those are just some examples, but there are many, many more. Include inside of the banking world, inside of the healthcare world, there are job titles that didn't exist before and that do now. So let's go back to the automobile industry and how many people in the horse and buggy industry thought they were going to lose their livelihood. But what they didn't see is we're not just buying cars. We have car mechanic shops. We have we have body shops. We have car washes. We have everything related to the car industry, the automobile industry, has created a massive kind of ballooning economy. And essentially, you can't argue that there are not more jobs than there were before. And this happens time and time again. Same with, 1993, 95, the birth of the World Wide Web on top of the internet. And, there were those people who said, oh, it's just a fad. It's not really going to change anything. And that's kind of funny to think back now as the people who thought that. So is there going to be damage to the job market before there is growth? Possibly, yes. We're seeing already the job market is a little bit tough for software engineers, lawyers, and marketers, particularly, but also for many other, job titles. They're kind of struggling at the moment. I think the business world has kind of decided hold on the hiring for now, essential hires only. We're not sure how this is going to play out, and there are folks kind of seeing, oh, they got laid off a few months ago, and it's not easy to find the next thing. I think I heard an amazing line at a Salesforce event last week was tomorrow's jobs belong to today's learners. And so that's suggesting that, give ourselves the flexibility to kind of change lane a little bit and bringing all of our skills and our experience, our knowledge, just a little bit over here to where we can see momentum, and then we'll be rewarded for that courage and that curiosity.
Yeah, I love that answer, Mark. Anytime people tell me AI is going to take away jobs, that's the answer that I'm going to share with them right there. I think that the car analogy is so fruitful, especially because a lot of people point towards mechanics, but I love all the auxiliary industries that you just pointed out. Car washes, there's entirely different businesses, business models, services, all of that pop up because of this. And so it's really cool to think about all the ways that we're going to apply AI. When I think about that, Mark, one thing that always fascinates me is kind of the yin and the yang, the balance on both sides of things, because when you look at a business, there's areas where we can and should apply AI, but there's also that wisdom and that experienced perspective of knowing where not to apply AI. And I feel like that's kind of where we're at right now, is a lot of businesses are asking, where do we and where don't we? Part of your job and part of your value add with Kynoch is that you assess businesses and you look at them and say, hey, let's start here. What are you looking at when you look at a business from the outside, and when you get on the inside, how do you assess where you should be starting and where you should be building AI solutions?
Yeah, I love that question. It's so much fun. So we'll start by saying we're not connecting with as many businesses ready to hit the start button right now and say, let's do this. We want to spend X on a few agents that will do these tasks and these jobs, and we're ready. And whether it's experimental, whether it's just a proof of concept type of, putting some POC dollars into something that is more of a learning experience, or whether we are assured success, we're very confident we can design this, build this, and make it work. And I think that there's still a lot of, I wouldn't even call it hesitation. It's kind of still pondering, do we have to do this? What if we don't do it this quarter? What if we don't do it this year? Our argument is, if you will eventually be behind and either be left behind, or you'll have to play catch up. And it's hard to play catch up when the market is ahead of you, when your competitors are ahead of you. And this is the moment right now. You're not behind. If you're getting started now, looking at what agents can do for you start with a corner of your business and start simple. We can talk about this some more, like where do you start and how do you assess what would be the best couple of candidates for agents to get started. And then you're not behind. Then, the first agent that you build is a fabulous learning experience for your entire company. And then it will give you the confidence to say, wow, we were able to do that. Now, where else can we put agent number 2, number 3? And, there isn't a set number of agents that you need to have. But you now have yourself a situation where your humans are being assisted by autonomous agents, and you've done it. You're in the pool, right? Now you can start to, I say this a lot. We're limited by our imagination more than our budget, more than our legal constraints or regulatory constraints. The real constraint is, can you imagine what will you do when you can hire digital workforce agents? You can basically extend your workforce digitally without the headcount and without the payroll increment. What will you do with them? And so these are great questions, Brian. And so I'll give you an example. We've done a number of fairly basic either employee support or customer support. It's an obvious first place to start. If you've got Salesforce up and running, you use cases, right? You have cases for customer support. why not start with solving the simplest and most, shall we say, uninteresting cases for humans, make them interesting for agents, and then solve them. And it will start off with something really, really simple, and prove that it works, and then expand from there. On the other end of the scale, we're working on one right now with a biosciences research company, little startup, and they're finding that their molecular research is really manual, and it's really labor intensive, and they're accessing a number of public databases to look up organisms. Imagine you start with the end in mind, and you want to break down hydrocarbon fuels in filling station sites after they've been shut down. You want to grow a garden where there used to be a gas station. Well, you can't right now until you break down those diesel and petrol residues. Can I create a natural product that would break down those hydrocarbon residues without chemicals? Well, let's find out. And so they start researching what kind of organisms have those qualities. And weeks later, you've done hundreds of hours of research on these public databases, and you've got yourself a list of organisms which, when put together, would interact with each other to form a formulation that would probably work. And then you go into lab testing and you actually test it. So we're building an agent that will do a lot of that research. You start by describing your end goal, and it will then go and access those public databases for you and bring back a summary of its findings, which is incredibly exciting when you think about this. Is not just doing a low-level task. It's kind of gone up a level. It's not built yet, so we don't, check in with us a little bit later. But there's one example of things getting more ambitious, right, and more visionary.
Mark, I love that, especially because the word that stands out to me, it's a word I use about my work a lot, which is exciting. And hearing you talk about these sort of AI solutions, what I hear is, obviously I'm hearing you talk about the subject matter itself, but getting the chance to interview you here today, Mark, what I'm really hearing and absorbing is your genuine excitement. You called it out earlier that you're a tech optimist. And so for me, as a fellow optimist in life, and especially in business, I know that what drives me is that I firmly believe and deeply believe that entrepreneurship makes the world a better place. And it's so clear in talking to you today that you also firmly believe not only entrepreneurship, but also AI and technology can make the world a better place. With that in mind, Mark, I want to ask you about what motivates you, because a lot of entrepreneurs, we face all the ups and downs, and you've experienced this. This is your third entrepreneurial venture as well. You're one of us. I always remind listeners about that. What's that like as you push forward through those ups and downs? Where's that entrepreneurial mindset kick in, and how do you continue to have that drive?
Sure, Brian. Well, I think it's scary in a really great way. So when the world is moving so fast, I mean, the AI world is moving so fast that, as we sleep, we're missing news, and we wake up, we catch up, we go, oh, that happened. And so what I'm afraid of is the crowd catching up with me and with my team, and suddenly everyone knows how to do this stuff, and we're not differentiated. So I think that's a really scary thing. The reason I'm not still doing the first venture, I founded Benissimo in 2012, is we kind of had a different purpose. We were a Salesforce partner, and we were very successful, but our mission was different, and we kind of accomplished that mission, sold that company, and then did the second one. So, our mission this time is to bring success with AI, especially to the mid-market companies who might still think it's too expensive or too risky. And we want to take the risk out of it while still being quite visionary. And the scary part is, a lot of consulting firms tend to cater to that risk-averse middle management sort of thinking in the corporate world, at the enterprise level, at the Fortune 500 level. And we're here to connect with the mid-market leaders who see that they want to do this. They're not quite sure about the risk and the cost and the probability of success. So we have that conversation and we get them to a level of comfort that says, this is X amount of dollars that you're going to spend here, and we're very confident that we'll get this to accomplish its stated purpose. And from there you can layer on. You're not done, but you've got success with your first spend, right? So I think it feels great to be doing this. Our challenge is to find more of those companies where we have a lot of conversations where they're just not ready. They're just they say, we love what you're doing, and give us more time. We're thinking about this. They're kind of thinking about do they have to, or they're also thinking like which platform is the best one for them, and what's it going to do to their operation. And I think the biggest thing they're afraid of is that they have to keep spending more money to achieve the initial kind of definition of success. So it's a very exciting year. I mean, I do believe that 2025 is the year of agent AI, and I do believe that Salesforce is probably the absolute best platform. Nobody else can really offer this unified platform on top of which to put your autonomous agents. And what Kynoch Labs offers is the visionary skills that a lot of consulting firms don't quite have yet, because they play it safe. So we're not risky, we're just more leading edge, and we're able to give you confidence that you will succeed while adopting the new stuff and not waiting for it to be mainstream.
Yes, so well said, Mark. I keep coming back to it. Something you've already said here in our conversation today, and it's going to leave a lasting impression on me, and that is we're limited not by budget, not by resources, but by that imagination. And here it is again showing up in that visionary thinking that you've obviously injected into the way that Kynoch operates, and it's so cool to hear that. So, Mark, I've got one last big challenge for you. It's the question I ask at the end of every single episode, and that is, what's your one best piece of advice? Knowing that we're being listened to by both entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs at all different stages of their own growth journeys. And also, I know that from our conversation today, they're all going to be excited about the new way, the more expansive way to imagine, to dream big, to make these things happen in their business. You're a fellow entrepreneur. So what's that one piece of advice that you want to leave them with today?
Oh, gosh, well, I think you look in the mirror and you ask yourself, do I have entrepreneurial blood flowing through me? And it's okay to have doubt. It's okay to sometimes wonder, like, wouldn't I be just safer with a regular paycheck and just stay with some big company where I'll be safe? Well, number one, nobody's really safe anymore. The job for life thing has been gone for a long time, and now with the increased kind of crazy pace of business, nobody's safe. So I think the safest place is actually to be a fast-moving entrepreneur who is very agile, very nimble, and is able to kind of not a U-turn, but is able to kind of change lanes quickly and say, it's over here, and that's not a pivot. It's just a slight adjustment to where we thought we were going, and to do that frequently, and to be able to say, right, we're not wrong, but we need to adjust slightly where we're going and what we're seeking, and we'll be okay. And if we keep doing that, then it's not even about money, although when we are successful, the money just takes care of itself. It's really about the curiosity and the ability to see that we need to make an adjustment every day.
Yes, so well said. Advice, listeners. As Mark is saying that, I'm nodding my head the entire time because I'm thinking, yes, we all have those moments. Mark, I can't tell you the number of times I've said, wouldn't it be easier to just have a paycheck every single week? Wouldn't it be easier to just have an HR department that plans out all of our benefit programs? Wouldn't all that be easier? But holy cow, the juice is so worth the squeeze. And you encapsulated so well the real entrepreneurial mindset and the real entrepreneurial ups and downs in that answer. sharing that advice. So I so appreciate you for sharing that with our audience here today. I also know that our audience is going to be super keen to see a lot of these things that you and I talked about, see them in action. And I love your website. One of the headlines right there on your website is, "Are you ready for Agentforce?" Learn more, and seeing all the materials that you've put together about why it's so powerful to hire an agent. I put hire in quotes because these are things that we can build for our businesses thanks to visionaries like you. So Mark, for those listeners who want to go deeper into your business and all the great work you're doing, drop those links on us. Where should listeners go from here?
Stay curious. Again, tomorrow's jobs belong to today's learners, and they're not necessarily jobs. They might be entrepreneurial ventures. And I would say, something. There's always stress in life, no matter what you're doing, right? You could be a kid playing soccer, and it's stressful because you're doing hard things, and you might lose, and that's terrible, right? So, stress is good. Pressure is privilege. Now, the kind of stress that I was never able to shake off was the corporate friction between people, sharp elbows, and somebody kind of putting a thumbtack in you, so just kind of making your day difficult unnecessarily. I was not able to shake that off. Whereas the stress of running a company and just cash flow, and are we going to win this next deal? Are we? There's a project that's run into a problem. You're always going to have these. You're always going to have these things. But that stress, I can manage because I can make decisions, and I have the scope to navigate from here through challenges. And I think it's much less stressful to do that than to be in an environment where I don't have access to, I can't change my environment. I can either leave or I can stay and tolerate it, and that's not good for me.
Yes, spoken like a true entrepreneur, Mark. I love hearing your perspectives on that. Listeners, you are in for such a treat because we are dropping the links to Mark's business website, to his personal LinkedIn down below in the show notes. No matter where it is that you're tuning into today's episode, you'll be able to go so much deeper into a lot of these things that we've talked about here on the air on his website. And if you want to continue the conversation, you heard that Mark is very keen on having conversations with business leaders who want to start implementing this stuff, not thinking about it, not being aware that it's out there, but actually implementing it. So we're dropping a link to his personal LinkedIn down below in the show notes. Otherwise, Mark, on behalf of myself and all the listeners worldwide, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Super fun. Thank you, Brian.